Folks like Bill O'Reilly, Juan Williams, and others say Black Lives Matter movement leaders don't have an agenda. Well, I've proven that's a lie. Y'all know I don't play that if you lie. I'm going to bust you out. Well, Chicago-based Black Youth Project 100 introduces their agenda to build black futures. The agenda is a set of public policy goals that young folks can organize around and build in their local communities. Joining us to talk about that is the National Director of the Black Youth Project 100, Charlene Carruthers. Still, of course, Paris Jadard and Carmen Berkeley is with us as well. So, Charlene, what is the main thrust of the agenda?
Yeah. So we set out to create a bold economic justice vision from young black people, like in our words, in our thoughts, from our minds. And we took a look at what was out there and thought about what are the things that we could do if they happen, they would improve the lives of black folks who are on the margins of the margins. So poor black folks, LGBTQ black folks, black women and children. And so for us, it includes these 6 things. Revisiting reparations. We want reparations for chattel slavery, Jim Crow, mass incarceration and segregation. We want folks to honor workers' rights. We're actually calling for a guaranteed basic minimum income for all people. To divest and eliminate profit from punishment. So we need to stop profiting from the punishment in the prison system and hyper-surveillance. Also valuing the worth of women's work. People say all the time, well, you know, the problem with black folks is that we have too many households led by single mothers. Actually, the problem is that we don't support those households and those mothers who are the heads of the households. Then we also looked at supporting trans wealth and health. We can't have a conversation about economic justice without including black trans folks and gender nonconforming folks. It was bold, and it is bold, and it's necessary. And then lastly, revitalizing and stabilizing black communities. Our communities, we talked about Donald Trump earlier and his displacement of people through eminent domain. That has happened on a systemic level where we're talking not just 1 or 2, but thousands of black folks who've been displaced from their homes. And so how do we build stronger and better communities? And that's what we're looking at.
Well, that's one of the things that, you know, I've been critical of Trump and these other candidates. Housing is a tremendous issue in this country. And if you go to his website, there's for somebody who's supposedly a real estate expert, there's nothing on housing on his website. You listen to the Republican debate, housing will not come up, even though that's how most Americans are able to actually build and create wealth.
Absolutely. And I think particularly, again, we always go to the margins of the margins. What does it mean to live in a country where if you are a person who has been convicted of a felony, you can't live in federal public housing in most states? That's a problem. So we tell people, serve your time and you've done your debt to society, but once you're actually released out into the society, you have very little to no support. And so the agenda to build black futures is about that. Yes, it is rooted in the black experience and a need for black liberation. And also, if these things happen, they would radically transform the entire country for everyone. And
we talk about, very interesting, every time I hear folks who complain about the minimum wage, what ends up happening is the standard response is, oh my goodness, that's going to destroy the economy. Every time we've increased the minimum wage, it didn't destroy the economy.
Of course it doesn't destroy the economy because people can actually pay for things and that actually stimulates the economy. The minimum wage is supposed to be at like $20 if it actually kept up with inflation. But at the end of the day, even people that have a job, they are not at full employment. And I think that is what Black Youth Project and the Movement for Black Lives is trying to help people get to, is what does full employment look like? Because celebrating a 5% unemployment rate is still ridiculous. Right. Because in the black community, we still are at double-digit unemployment rates.
Absolutely. That's why you saw Robert Reich, former secretary in the Clinton administration, said these job employment numbers are terrible because they're crappy jobs. They're not on the job. They're not full time, and wage stagnation is another problem that we have. But you're very accurate when he talks about the quality. It's the quality of the job. You can have minimum wage jobs, but we want to. Our goal should be have more good and high quality jobs that are paying a livable wage.
But in order for us to have a real discussion about high quality jobs, we have to contend with the fact that we no longer make anything because we're making things in other countries, so that's one. Right. Also, what we've seen is that we've seen productivity rise tremendously since 1950, but yet wages have only risen about 103%, productivity almost 350%. So what's happening is these corporations are saying, you got to work harder, longer for the exact same amount of money, or actually even less money. And so part of the issue is that companies right now are hoarding cash. And so this whole deal of, oh, we're blaming on our tax policy. No, they're literally hoarding cash and saying we don't want to pay our workers more money.
Absolutely not. Look,
I think you're right about corporations and also individuals amassing wealth on the backs of poor people. I think the other dynamic is that in the city of Chicago, the Chicago Police Department receives about 40% of the city's public service budget. That's a problem. That amounts to about $4 million a day. Imagine if we lived in an economy where we weren't spending so much money on policing and we invested those dollars in quality public schools, job creation, good jobs, mental health care services, the list go on and on and on. We spend about $81 billion a year around putting people in cages, surveilling people, and putting in parole. We can do something different, and the agenda to build Black futures is about that.
Just out of curiosity, which one do you think is which number one thing that you think we could actually accomplish? Like reparations, I don't really think that the public could, or the politicians really get behind that. But which one do you think really can happen?
So I'm happy that you mentioned reparations, because I believe that reparations is actually one of the more viable things. We look at things from the GI Bill to reparations for other communities when.
But we're talking about Black folks, so it's different for us.
I think everything is possible.
It shouldn't be different for us, though.
But it is.
It shouldn't be different for us.
At one point, we didn't think it was possible for us not to be enslaved through chattel slavery, right? I think anything is possible. That's a marker, I think, of this current movement and of BYP 100 in believing, and of Black folks, period. We've always believed in something that isn't necessarily immediately attainable.
All right, gotta go to a break. We really appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Thanks a bunch, folks. We come back. We'll talk to Danielle Nicolette, of course, who stars in Born Again Virgin right here on TV One. Plus, we still have more from the Image Awards. All of that right here on News One Now, TV One.